Hey everybody, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jake.
We are the Dirt Road Men. Here today for a talk video. We're gonna technically discontinue Hard Truths, but really we're just gonna retitle it because it's too constraining on some of the stuff I want to talk about. For example, what we're doing in the video today, which is something I wanted to talk about that all men have, really, if they think about it, or at the very least all people should have. To some degree, and if you don't, you should probably develop them. If you're young, it's really hard. They might change, right? You got to figure out who you are first. But what I wanted to talk about in general was principles, and I stumbled on this concept because of a conversation we had last night, right?
Okay.
And principles themselves are ideas, and they, like anything, maybe should be subject to scrutiny. That said, when someone has principles, they should be sound in them. They should hold to them, I would think.
Yeah.
I think that's one of my favorite qualities in a man, and really in anyone. But, we're dudes, we tend to think, what's a good man, and that's who we want to be. So, and our market is 25 to 34-year-old men, so I think this is a relatively, call it, important topic.
Yeah.
I think everyone should have principles, regardless necessarily of what those principles are, and that they do help define you as a person. And that those principles do not then, those principles shouldn't be received as some sort of ultimatum or oppressive value, which was the argument made against a particular principle that my wife and I have, for instance, which is drug use. I grew up in a home where drugs were a real problem, a genuine problem that resulted in a lot of trouble for myself and my brother. And I know, at least some members of your family have had some experiences with drugs that have led you to have a similar philosophy to myself on them.
Yeah.
Which is essentially a laissez-faire type argument for the rest of the world, in the sense of, at least I don't care about what you do to yourself. As long as you're not hurting anybody else, it doesn't bother me. That said, there are some principles I have against drug use that basically mean, and my wife agrees with me on this, luckily, if you do drugs, I can't be with you, long term. I can't be with a woman that uses drugs. I don't use them. I can't have them in my house. It's an unacceptable thing to me. It's one of those things that it's like, okay, I will not date someone that does this.
Yeah, it's like for me, because I feel the same way, it's no different than, say, dating a woman, maybe going to marry her, but she likes to have other penises inside her other than mine.
Yeah, that's an unacceptable...
It's an unacceptable thing for me, and I'm not going to have it.
Yeah, it just means, and if you can't find a way to coexist that way, then you figure your shit out. But, I dropped it first in this one, unlike the other one that we were talking about.
You dropped it first in the other one.
The video will tell the tale. Anyway, I think that everyone should take time to think about their principles. There are some that are going to be self-evident to you. Drugs was one for me. I grew up in a home that was directly affected by drug use, and so I will not have drugs in my home. If you bring drugs into my home and I find out about it, you'll be asked to leave politely once. The second time's not going to be politely. You're probably going to have a gun in your face. You're no longer a guest in my home. You're an intruder. Get out.
Probably not even going to ask a second time. You're probably not going to leave on your own free will.
Yeah, you're leaving one way or the other. And I think principles like that are important. And the argument that was made to me was it's almost a way of telling my wife how she has to live her life. And that's not entirely what it is. I think that's a mischaracterization. What it is a line that is unacceptable. It's not saying that you can't do it. It's saying that doing that action is incompatible with our present relationship. And there are things like that, right? Like for me, the biggest two are drugs and cheating.
Yes.
I think cheating is one for pretty much everybody.
Yeah.
It's basically what you just named.
Yeah.
But some people don't see that as cheating. There are people in polyamorous relationships. We know someone in a successful polyamorous relationship. You can make that work, and that's not our problem.
It's just not for me.
Yeah, exactly. And it's something that you should definitely think about. And you should outline them. And they're discussions that you should have, particularly with people like friends and family and people you care about. Because your principles are, in my opinion, the largest part of who you are. It's that and your past experiences are like your number 1 and 2. I don't know what order they should come in. But like, you are everything you've lived through up to now. And you are your principles. Your principles define your character. Well, how strictly you stick to your principles defines your character.
Yeah.
Because people can have principles and say, this is bad, but then they do it.
Yeah.
And everybody's guilty of that to some degree, right? Like, there are some things that I think aren't necessarily good. I don't think they're an absolute bad or they're a principle, but that I don't do. But it's not a principle for me not to do them.
Like, I personally think smoking cigarettes is terrible. Probably shouldn't do it. Shouldn't
You
start.
smoke.
But I smoke.
Exactly. And so there are things, but not smoking is not a defining principle of your life.
No.
It's just a belief that you hold.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big issue, is defining the difference between a principle and a belief. Because they're the same and they're different. It's like a square is a rectangle, but a rectangle is not a square. You never heard that principle? Okay, so to be a rectangle, you have to have 4 90-degree angles, 4 sides. That's it.
And that's all a square is.
Right, but a square is equidistant sides. All the sides are the same length. A rectangle can have varying length sizes as long as they're only 2 different lengths. Otherwise, you're a quadrilateral, but yeah.
Geometry.
We're not going to get too deep into that because it's an analogy. We're working through this idea on camera, by the way. This is an unscripted thing, and I was literally like, let's have this discussion and this conversation on camera, because I think it's important, and I think it directly contributes to character and what we think makes a man.
Yes.
Or a person, but we're targeting men, we speak as men, so there you go. For example, the United States, greatest country in the world, was founded on a few principles. One of them was individual freedoms. Particularly, freedom of thought, freedom to defend yourself, particularly from tyranny, freedom, I'm skipping, I believe, but freedom from unreasonable searches and seizures, freedom from slavery eventually, that was the 14th Amendment or the 13th Amendment. And those are principles that our country is founded upon. And there are principles that are constantly up for debate in society. The Second Amendment is, for whatever reason, up for debate, despite the fact that it was written into the founding of our country. But particularly, there are new principles that people would like as an amendment to be put into action. Prohibition. That's the word I was looking for.
Okay.
I was about to say anti-alcoholism. I am pro-alcoholism. Please become an alcoholic. No. Don't do that. But that was put into our Constitution, and then later contradicted because of a debate of principles.
Yeah.
The free market is a general principle of American society. Western society, really, not just America. England had this principle, although they're violating some of their principles, I think, in their current thing. We literally just read about a guy that got arrested and sentenced to 13 months in prison for reporting on something. That's direct violation of freedom of speech / freedom of the press. Amendment 1 here. But most countries don't have that written directly into their constitution.
And even if they did, a lot of countries don't have what we have as our Second Amendment.
Yeah, which is meant to protect the others, and it's meant to protect you from tyranny and from invading armies. And I mean, you can debate the semantics of it, whatever. You know our positions on that. We've talked about it before. But it's still a principle that the Founding Fathers had that our society was founded upon. Individual freedom. And one thing a lot of people don't like to aggregate, I might be misusing that word, connect to freedoms is their polar opposites. The polar opposite and equal of rights is, it comes along with it, so maybe polar opposites is the wrong word, is responsibilities. For every right you have, there's a responsibility. You have the right to free speech, but you are responsible for what you say.
Yes. Just because you can do something doesn't necessarily mean you should.
Yeah, and you're not absolved from the consequences, socially in particular. So you should have freedom of speech, but if you say something stupid, society's going to evaluate your idea as stupid, and you're going to suffer the consequences of that. If someone wants to support Hitler's ideals, to take an extreme example, society's going to judge them as someone that should not be a part of society, and I think rightly so in that case.
Yeah.
But that's the idea behind freedom of speech, is it's really the freedom of thought. Because literally just having to edit your speech can change how you think. For example, to get a little controversial, transgender pronouns.
So fucking dumb.
Well, but I kick myself back and forth on the polite side of whether or not to use them. I certainly don't think, like Canada, we should write that into law.
Yeah,
because I should be free to call somebody an idiot if I want to. I should be free to... people should be free to fly a Nazi flag or use the N-word. I'm particularly happy to let them fly a Nazi flag, because then it's like a giant banner that says, I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
Avoid me.
Exactly. I am not pleasant to be around.
Yeah, it's that simple. So those are big defining principles, and the thing that defines your character in relation to principles is how you hold up to those principles in hard times. So to go back to the Second Amendment, we hold that right is supremely important, even though there are risks that come with it, and we see results of that with school shootings.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, our society didn't have this problem before, even though we had the Second Amendment. So really, what we need to address is whatever societal problem is causing people to do this, and you can debate what that is. I have my own opinions. But the principle is the Second Amendment, the freedom to bear arms. And self-protection, both from tyranny, other individuals, what have you, starvation. And that principle, you have to hold that up even in the test of heavy scrutiny. And that's a test of your character, and it's a test of the strength and validity of the principle. So I think they're very important to have, even though they can be controversial. People may disagree with them. And even though people disagree with them, everyone should be free to have them. Everyone is free to have them here. Even if they're stupid. I think that's my whole piece on it. You have anything else you want to add?
I don't think so. I think you pretty well.
Yeah, I figured it was better for us to have this as a conversation rather than a hard truths video, because it's easier for me to work through a thought when I talk to you about it.
Yeah.
Especially because, like, if I say something without completing the logic, you'll ask questions. But yeah.
See, I think I know exactly what you're saying. It's.
Well,
I get it. I don't know if others.
Yeah, and if you want to have a discussion about it, definitely drop it in the comments. I'm sure Romeo Rory will put it on there because he comments on every video. Great American tends to comment on every video. He thanked us for his shout-out that we gave him in last week's video. We definitely love when somebody bothers to become a fan and comment on our videos, even if you just comment like, thumbs up, American flag, which I think is a comment he's put on one video.
It's great. I
Yeah.
love the American flag.
You can show me the American flag as much as you want. As long as you're not doing something stupid with it. There's another principle.
Yeah.
And
Good way to get your teeth knocked in.
yeah. What was the Johnny Cash quote?
Oh, I love that you have the right to burn and walk on the American flag, but I love that I have the right To shoot you if you try.
To try to, yeah, it's. I also love my right to bear arms, so I can shoot you if you try to burn mine.
Yes, yes.
Like, you can do whatever you want with your flag, but if you come and try to burn my flag, I'm going to shoot you. And even if that shooting is unjustified, that's a principle he held. Like, I will shoot you even if I have to do prison time for shooting someone for disrespecting my flag that I fly. So, I think that's a good bit, and we'd be happy to hear your points of view on the discussion, and we'll talk back and forth with you about it. We're not going to sit here and fight through negative comments, which I've done before. It's just a Debbie Downer. But if you want to actually have a conversation, then by all means, let's do it. So, without further ado, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jake.
We are the Dirt Road Men.
If you like this video, hit the subscribe button, the notification bell, drop us a comment, and check out our Facebook page for daily updates.